Then we have that moment where we're live. That was a smooth transition. So, hi everyone. Welcome to Law Check-in. The show will start in a few minutes. Bear with me. But you're lucky for those who are joining right now because we have this little lobby section we do every time. By the way, for those who are joining, if you have any questions for our guests at the end of the show, or if you want to talk about your startup, your latest initiative, it's a fantastic time to do so. Just write in the comments, Facebook comments, or for those who are listening on LinkedIn, it's too late. It's too late, but Facebook works. Hey, how's everyone? Let's do a little, like we do every week, a little roundup. Dennis, it will be your first time hosting this show. Are you excited about that?
Oh, I'm stoked. Yeah, usually I'm in the back end pulling up all the links, making sure all the graphics are set up. So I'm pretty pumped to be doing this fintech version. I've got a bit of a background in finance as a financial securities advisor, so it's up my alley, and it's cool to get involved in this way with the show.
That's fantastic. So basically, one of the reasons why we do that fintech show was because Dennis was pushing for it. So if the show is kind of a bit awkward, it's Dennis' fault. And if for any reason,
having Laviva and Nick here, I think. You can take your face off. I can take my face off and take Alejandro's off, and the show would be wonderful. So
that sounds like way easier on my end on a technical level. We should do that. By the way, if you ever see animations loading like in slow motion, like not properly, that's because Dennis is doing all the fancy hosting and I'm the back end guy helping. So again, Dennis' fault. Because he's just having like all this power.
Really like owning the show here. I love it. Thank you. So if everything, it's like when you were cooking, like my mom used to say, like, if the food is great, it's me. If the food is not good, it's your dad who bothered me during life.
That must be an old Moroccan saying, right, Elias?
Yeah. Speaking of which, it's Eid today.
Happy Eid.
Yeah, exactly. So
Eid Mubarak.
Sorry, Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak.
Eid Mubarak for everyone. Yeah, usually it's like this kind of like Christmas style thing, with like huge family gathering and friends and stuff. And like today, it's like a beautiful gathering here. The only thing I have that would remind me like Eid.
We're here, Elias. We're here.
You call that a gathering, Elias?
Comment?
You call that a gathering?
Yeah, well, we're six.
It's close enough.
Oh, okay.
Alejandro.
Oh, no. I thought you were talking like in your room. Like whoever was in your room is just you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, me and my multiple personalities.
It's about the presence. It transcends physical spaces, Alejandro. We're way beyond that. Hey, how was your week, Elias? We still have a few minutes.
Bah écoute, moi je sais qu'on va garder le meilleur pour la fin, puis introduire Laviva et Nick et tout quand on va être vraiment live. Mais j'aimerais bien savoir how are their weeks first. And well, like in my country we say ladies first. I don't know in Russia how it works in your country. In my country we try to be like a little bit of like Okay. How are you doing, Laviva? That's like what I wanted to know.
I see Elias is using his mirror to bounce the question. So Laviva, it's on you. How was your week?
No, doing great. Super grateful to be here and to be part of the MTL New Tech community and being able to share some of my perspectives and Luge's perspectives about fintech. I had a great week. We're actually almost closing a new investment. Not there yet, but it's almost there. Hopefully by tomorrow it'll be done. So I think if it's done, then it'll be a good week, But I had a good week.
Awesome.
And you, Nick, how was your week?
Week is going well. Summer's going well. It's flying by, but no, everything is good. Well, I think like everyone, we're used to the new normal, working from home, and it's nice because it's letting us focus not just on our normal activities in Montreal, but throughout Canada, and also looking forward to the future. So, like for example, our Ascension program, which is an incubation program for fintech startups that starts in February. Applications are already open, and tons of startups already signing up, and we have our info session.
I love how like the guy is like plugging his thing already. Whoa.
Wait. That comes from Elias.
I was just going back to add to like how are you feeling, and like Laviva is giving us some like, sneak peeks on like what's going on, and the announcements are coming, and the investments.
You see, Nick, it takes one to it takes one to see one. What was the expression? Elias does the exact same thing, so that's why he can call you out, because
I'm following in the footsteps of the great, so I'm just, trying to...
No, you're absolutely right. Of course you're right, and this is like how life is. But
I'm sure in your dreams, Elias, you plug startups. You understand?
Non, moi je plug pas mes trucs. There is a difference. Je plug pas mes trucs. Je plug les trucs des autres personnes in which I believe, which is different.
It's true.
But so like little nuance, sorry, cultural thing. But no, but actually, like Nick, how are you doing yourself as a human being, as an amazing individual in our fintech ecosystem, with a lot of energy, etc.? How is like this COVID and like the sunshine outside, and at the same time the work going with the fintech canals?
Good. I think COVID gives more balance in a way. Like, I don't know. Summer's different. I used to bike to work every day, so I'm not biking. I'm just waking up and showing up at the office, which is my dining room table. But it's good. I'm building shelves. There's going to be new shelves being added here very soon. And woodworking is my new passion. In winter, like beginning COVID, it was cooking, doing a lot of cooking. Now it's a bit too hot, so now I'm doing woodworking.
Okay, so we'll see that next time. Cool. We'll have you on the show. Now we have to see those shelves, Nick. Otherwise, you lied to us, and we don't like being lied to. We had a whole meeting about that. Alejandro, you're the last one. We saved you for the best. How was your week before we go live?
Oh, week, it was great. Weather has been really nice. I've been enjoying, by the way, the rainy days. Yeah. That's been great. It gives me peace to listen to the water falling, and then the sunny day today is nice as well, so can't complain.
Perfect. So look, for me, we're
poetic notes. That's very, very nice.
It was, yeah. So for me, I got back from vacation. That's probably why my sound was so weird. It's like I had perfect connection on my cell phone everywhere I was going, but internet was still slow. I have to. When they say that there's still a digital divide, even though you have 4G, it's 4G on paper. Like barely, the video can barely make it. So sorry for those who had to endure my connectivity problems, but I'm back in the civilization in Shawinigan with high-speed internet, and that works well. So look, we're gonna start our show in about 30 seconds. So everybody ready? Nick and Laviva will have you at the end of the show. So for those who are curious, just wait. We'll go for the highlight sections first, and then we'll have you. Alejandro, see you later. Elias as well. And it's going to be me and Dennis for this one. Perfect?
Sounds wonderful.
And now remember that I have to manually do all the switching because Dennis is not doing it anymore.
I thought I was going to disappear. Still here.
Not anymore. And that's it. so much power in those clicking hands. Perfect. So we're ready, Dennis?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're live, and that's the beginning of the Check-In Show. Hi, Dennis. This is our brand new co-host. Dennis, how are you doing?
Good. Ready to rock this.
So Dennis, you might have seen him. He usually does the back-end technical switching. He's from the shadow, but we start shining more lights on him over time. So he got a bit tan. You're better tan than me. I was the guy on the vacation for 2 weeks. What? I did it wrong.
You must be from the wrong part of the Soviet Union where the sun usually doesn't shine, so your skin just naturally doesn't adapt.
Yeah, I'm white. It's a condition. So essentially, we have a nice show about fintech, and the reason why we have a nice show about fintech is because you have a strong interest in finance. So why you decided to make a whole show about it? Tell me.
Exactly. Yeah. So finance is such an important part of our lives, right? And I find it's something that isn't oftentimes spoken about. It's kind of missed during the education system, kind of grade school, right? Even in university, oftentimes people don't even touch on the subject, and it's such an important thing. And since we're here with Montreal FinTech, it's such a big part of the tech ecosystem. It's been growing as a field. It's very exciting, all the stuff that's happening in it. Canada's a huge part of the FinTech ecosystem. We've got a lot of organizations that are involved. So it's about time we bring it onto the show and actually have a conversation about this.
Okay, that seems like valid reasons. Okay, let's proceed and we'll see if you performed up to our standards. But it's true, fintech, everybody I've been talking to are really passionate about that. And you think it's about finance at first, but it's so much more than just that. Okay, so let's start the show with the highlight section. And the highlight, like every week, is where we take a bit of time to look at the news, events, announcements, and such, and go through them methodically to see what could be of interest. And the topic for this week, for this show, is overall fintech. So we'll see a lot of fintech news. Brace yourself for impact there. So let's go ahead, Dennis, with the first piece of news, which is...
Yeah, so I wanted to bring on a conversation around the Canadian fintech ecosystem map. So this one's a little bit of an oldie, but it's a goodie. So the really key thing here is there's so many Canadian players in the fintech ecosystem. So for somebody who wants to know more about it, who wants to see what's happening in my province, what kind of organizations are out there, what part of the fintech ecosystem are they actually involved in as well? Because it's quite a wide industry, right? So I highly recommend anybody to check this website out. We're gonna have the link in the show notes. What you can do is actually filter by both city, by province, and actually filter down into the categories of fintech that you're most curious about. And allows you to actually find out what's going on locally or what's going on in the province over. It's a fantastic resource. Fintech Cadence is involved in this. And I had a chance to speak with one of their guys over there who let me know that they actually keep this thing updated regularly as well. So what you're seeing there is actually what's going on recently. So it's a fantastic resource for anybody who's looking to, find out more and find out what's going on in their area.
Nice. I think the next one fits pretty smoothly with that. There's a service called FDX. So it's a technical standard. And how can I explain that? So, okay, I'll give it a shot. You tell me if it makes sense, okay? So the FDX in a nutshell is all about trying to standardize the way banks, for example, financial institutions are connecting to other services. So I'll give you an example. You have Bluetooth. Before Bluetooth existed, think of like old phones. People had this idea that it would be amazing if different devices were to be able to connect to each other. Okay, but there were so many companies working on so many different platforms. You go from computer to cell phones to all kind of devices, and they came up with this idea of Bluetooth. It took a lot of time. I think there's like 30,000 different companies in that consortium right now, and suddenly we take it for granted. We can listen music on it. We can do everything. It standardized the way it was working because before that, everybody had their own little solution. Now apply that on banking. The same way, the same reason, the same way we don't want to stop using Bluetooth. Go back to banking. Everybody has their own little solution. Everybody has their own little backend system. And what works is we create APIs. APIs allows us to, from one system, let's say a bank, to connect to other systems. But the way that API works, everybody kind of bake its own solution. And the purpose of let me actually pull up the website. The purpose of FDX, the technical standard, is to say, hey, what about having all those banks? And I think there's about 31 organizations here. And it's the usual banks you can think of, from Desjardins, TD, and various institutions. There's a huge list. RBC is there, Visa, etc. Can we have a standard API system that we can use? Now, why
would really creating that efficiency, right?
Exactly. So
I'm sure you're a big fan of that, right?
I love efficiency. That's my background as a manager. But essentially, think of it this way. A lot of things that a bank is building as solutions already exist elsewhere. And it'll be easier for them to integrate with those solutions, keep the whole thing secure, and stop creating redundancy, meaning that they create a solution that somebody else, each bank creates its own solution. They could just, connect to a company that provides that solution, not have to rebuild it and have it better maintained. Anyway,
and especially when we're talking about security, right? It's when we're talking about finance, security is one of the most paramount issues. So to have a million different solutions out there who everyone's trying to keep up to date, secure, safe for people to use, it doesn't make sense, right? So something like this is going to be actually huge for the industry to make sure that we can trust the digital systems that surround us, and our money, our savings for the future. That's huge.
Exactly. So it's a bit, of course, on the technical side of the news, but the same reason you were so happy when your work, for example, stopped using their own custom email solution and moved to, let's say, Outlook or to Google G Suite. This is a similar thing where the bank could use whatever provider is the best. And what's interesting in the world of fintech, where it's moving super fast, is if you, Dennis, come up with a crazy good startup idea and you want a bank to use it, well, they use a standard set of APIs.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever it's Desjardins or RBC or TD, you can build something that works on all those platforms at once instead of doing those custom solutions. So a bit on the technical side, but I think it's a fantastic news to have all the banks and all the big financial institutions jumping on that boat. So let's jump to the next bit of news, which is the financial technology partner.
So this is pretty cool. So it's another bit of a kind of like report-esque style piece of news. So there was a 110-page report published online for everybody to access, really diving into the Q2 of 2020, what's been happening in the fintech industry. And it's pretty cool. They've got a lot of interesting figures out there. I'd love to have it pulled up on screen here so we can actually dive into a bit of the details here. So if you know, I'm jumping to page 10. Let's start with that one. So that's pretty cool. So overall, what we're seeing is there was a bit of a drop in investments in fintech, but it's very, very minor. And still, we're talking about huge numbers, $9.3 billion worldwide. And overall, like if you're looking at the trends, of course, the industry is just growing, right? And when I say it dropped, all we're talking about is it compared to 2018, right? And so it's very minor, but it's very exciting to see that there's so much happening. Let's go to page 13. So this one's actually really interesting too. So in comparison to, while the investment itself went down just a little bit, what we are seeing is that there's actually a growth in the number of companies being funded. So this year, at this point in time, we're seeing 479 companies that had created those deals in fintech. And the cool thing about that too is that of all that money that was invested, 70% actually comes from new investors too. So it's very cool that more and more players are actually coming out from the broader ecosystem and joining fintech in terms of growing what's out there and who's involved. So more partners means more money, and we're really heading in a great direction with this. The part of the report that also jumps in on is North America versus international. So it started a lot kind of on our side of the globe initially, but the rest of the world's been catching up. So the opportunities are really growing worldwide as well, and money's coming from all over the place. In pages 24, 25, 26 of the report, you'll see actual breakdowns of the international funding figures. So a lot of growth is happening, coming from Europe, from Asia. It's a very exciting time for fintech, honestly. And so if you want to dive into more of the data, more of the details, we'll have the report link posted in our show notes. So you're welcome to check it out on there.
Yeah, it's a fantastic bit. So I took a look at that report, and if you're a startup in the fintech system, you need data to kind of prove your point. And this was really well digested, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity for the audience who's involved in fintech. Go out there, do some screenshots, add them to your pitch deck. The data is very clear here, and you can very actionable in a sense that for your strategic decisions, but also when you're trying to convince an investor of where is that going towards. So that concludes essentially our highlight section. Of course, there's so many things that we try to talk about. We don't have all the time. We have a newsletter, and that's the good news. I don't know, Dennis, if you can help me pull it out.
Yeah,
just in the middle of it. I lost the habit. But essentially, we have a newsletter. We only can cover so much every week. But if you want to see all the good stuff, go on the newsletter. There's more where that comes from. And of course, as usual, we have our show notes. But time is running quickly. We try to make those things very short. And of course, we're always running for time. So let's go for the next section here. The next section essentially is where we talk about what you should plan ahead, what you should mark on your calendar. There's a few things. I think there's not that much this week, but there's a lot of things in the following weeks. So you have a huge heads up. So let's start with the most casual one, let's say. Let's start with some, we love drinks.
Yeah,
let's
absolutely. Fintech drinks. So this is very cool too. And at the end of the show, we're going to have a surprise guest who kind of jumps in and talks a little bit more about that. But I'm going to jump into a little bit of the details just to kind of give you guys a bit of a teaser. So Fintech Cadence is putting on an event called Fintech Drinks. It's something they do every single month. And it's a really cool event that gives opportunities for everybody in the ecosystem, anyone who's interested to jump in and get a bit of better understanding what's happening in the industry. They're covering a lot of really cool topics, and they're having a lot of really fantastic speakers that join these events, a lot of C-level executives. So it's a great opportunity to actually have a chance to speak with some very, very high up people. And not only that, but they also provide a couple of times before and afterwards to do a bit of networking as well. So it's not just a, sit down and watch from your seat at home. You actually have to get out of your pajamas and, be ready to do a bit of networking.
Perfect. I like those initiatives. There's a few kind of more formulas that relied on you being present, kind of drinks, informal, and all of them got suspended almost with the context of COVID. So yeah. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to say, you know what, as Nick said before, in the lobby section, for those who weren't there, missed it, it's gone. You have to be there when we go live. But essentially said that, that's the new normal. He was talking about that. And Fintech Drinks is a fantastic event, and you have to adjust to the new normal instead of just keep pushing it. So it's fantastic. Join there. Speaking of events, there's also another one that is pretty nice coming up called, the Fintech Con 2020. Essentially, it's the digital rise, as they say. But essentially, if you look for one huge event about fintech, that's a fantastic place to start. I was looking at their lineup, and oh god, they have like about 50 speakers, 40 different type of sessions, half a dozen of those pitching sessions. The event is pretty affordable too. It starts at about $25. I'm trying to be always kind of look at the price. It's too easy. Yeah, it's too easy to talk about an event and it's like $500 or $1,000, which is great if your company pays for it. But accessibility is one of the huge reasons why we created that show. The event, the way it works, and I like that too, is instead of running one mega event, they run it a few smaller themes across many weeks. So about 2 months worth of time. They started actually early this month, and they go until August 27th. So to kind of give you a lineup, right now they're running the leadership, adaptability, and culture. So this one is finishing up, but the next week is about digital identity convergence marketplace. Then they will have one about the currency war, which I'm definitely curious about because it is a war, let's face it, with a lot at stake. What about digital assets and the rise of the next kind of digital asset system? They have one about AI and fintech. They have about, and they actually conclude with what are the biggest debate and kind of friction points in the world of fintech. So starting at $25 a pop for 1 week, let's face it, it's pretty affordable. And you have the usual cocktail of networking, pitching, and all. So I think it's a fantastic opportunity if you guys want to attend one of the biggest events, let's say, of fintech, this year.
Especially this year, considering a lot of the couple of big key events were canceled or postponed. So this is that's a great one to be involved with. So
let's jump to the last piece of news for the next section. Dennis, this one is on you. Tell me more.
So the last piece that we wanted to bring up, and this is a free event, so it's actually something you have no reason not to be a part of if you're interested in fintech. It's the second annual Open Banking Summit. So this one's happening on August 19th. It's a digital event. As I mentioned, it's free, which is very cool. And so it's an opportunity to actually, again, network in the space. So there's going to be founders, CEOs of the largest lending and fintechs in Canada. So you don't want to miss this one, obviously. And this event's topic is going to be, so how can Canada accelerate the fintech economy? And how can lending community engage with regulators? So it's pretty interesting. It's a pretty big, broad topic, but it's obviously something that's quite important in the industry. And in the past, they've had some really big names, the Senior Vice President of National Bank, CEOs of Flinks, Lending Loop. So it's pretty cool Should be quite an interesting event, and I encourage anybody who's interested in finance, fintech, and banking to definitely check this one out.
Yeah, and even if you're getting started in that space or just interested in, this is an event that normally happens in Toronto, so it's fantastic because because they moved digital. I'm actually really eager to see more, like what's going to happen after COVID. I really hope that most of those events retain at least a digital portion to make it accessible, but start hearing about who the key players are is a very good strategic opportunity. And as you said, Dennis, it's free. So what's your excuse, right?
It's kind of a silver lining this year, actually. As much as COVID is a terrible thing that it's punishing the whole world, right? But more and more we're seeing digital solutions, and it's very cool because it provides opportunities for people from all the way across the country to actually connect and work together, where those opportunities might have not really been there in the past.
True. And of course, we kind of bombard you every week with a bunch of news. We are working on a little system. It's a Linktree startup resources. If you want to know more about some of the stuff we talk about, let me actually pull up the visual. It's super mobile friendly. You can go on that website, and it's a quick shortcut link to the startup kits, to those tech events we've been talking about through our newsletter and such. So you can go there, and of course as I said, sorry, we go quickly, but there is a show notes that you can access at the end of the show. We update it because sometimes we kind of discuss about new things. So the show notes is where there's literally a list of all the topics we talked about with the links next to it, because some of those links we cannot share. They're way too long. Let's face it, it's way easier to tap this little link and just click on the section that's relevant to you. Give me a few minutes at the end of the show to update it in case something is not there. But that's pretty much it for the plugs. Now let's go to the part that we've been all waiting for.
The deep dive.
The deep dive. So what is the deep dive? I have to put the visual. True. I'm losing the habit, Dennis. It goes so quickly.
I've made it too easy on you.
Okay, the deep dive. So the deep dives, for those who are fairly new to the show, is all about taking one specific topic, one piece of news or announcement and such, and actually get the people on the show, ask them the questions, and kind of make that topic more accessible and open it up a bit. This week, Dennis, who do we have?
So this week we have a wonderful guest from Luge Capital, and it's Laviva Mazhar. So let's bring her on. Hi, Laviva.
Hi, Laviva.
Hi. It's weird to be on backstage and then suddenly live.
You had at least 3 seconds to prepare. We're generous that way. So I'll vanish and I'll let Dennis lead the interview because he's new to this. So we're gonna challenge him.
Awesome.
Laviva, give him hell for me.
Yeah, please do. And anyone in the comments section too, if you're a heckler, if you have some great comments or thoughts, questions, definitely send them our way. I'll do my best to not fall apart under the pressure.
I think the pressure's on me.
It's on both of us. It's my first time. It's your first time on the show.
Yes.
It's going to be good.
Make it easy. I'm watching you both.
So, Laviva, the topic this week, so we're talking a little bit less about specific initiatives, but I was really curious to dive into, the state of fintech during COVID. So if you don't mind, I would love to hear from you in terms of, how has COVID and the global pandemic impacted the way you at Luge Capital do business?
Yeah, for sure. So maybe as a quick context, Luge Capital is a fintech-focused venture capital firm. We invest in early-stage fintech startups across Canada and US. It's an $85 million fund. We're backed by 7 wonderful partners who are all financial institutions. And to name a few, Desjardins is one of our investors. There's Sun Life Financial, Luge Capital, and Industrial Alliance. So we work very closely with them. In terms of how things have changed at Luge, obviously we're all working from home. And what that means is that all the new companies that we're meeting, it's all fully digital right now. Truthfully, it hasn't changed a lot of workflow for me personally. We've had, for example, Zoom subscriptions for each of our team members pretty much from day one of the fund. So a lot of my founder meetings are on Zoom anyways. I think where it's been a slight bit of an adjustment is when we actually get very actively engaged with a company, there's a point where we would like to meet the company, the main kind of founding team behind the company. So, really understand the founder and VC chemistry, which is super important because venture capital investments, often last for 10 years or a bit longer. So that relationship to make sure that we have good chemistry, that we'll be able to work together, is very important. So unfortunately, you can't really meet someone in person necessarily right now, especially if they're in a different city or in the US. So that's the only part that has changed. But otherwise, we're actively looking at companies, actively digging into companies online, on Zoom. And we're, like I said, we've announced 2 transactions, I think last week or the week before. So investments in Senso and Flinks. And then we're in the middle of a couple of other deals right now. So it's going well. I would say that we've adjusted well.
That's awesome. And honestly, so it makes a lot of sense, right? Fintech by definition is based around technology. So it makes a lot of sense that, we're not going to be falling apart as soon as something like this hits and we have to do a little bit more digital work, right? I do wonder though, so how have you adapted to, address the situation that you can't necessarily meet face to face with potential investment opportunities? So how have you guys gone around that?
So do you mean how are we going about doing a non-face-to-face deal?
Yeah, exactly. So especially, obviously the beginning of the conversation is, a lot simpler, but as you get further down the line of having those talks, those conversations, what happens? So how do you adapt to that?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, we're just doing a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of more on the fly. If we're in the middle of a negotiations or actual kind of legal document stage, just texting the founder and getting on the phone if necessary. So really, like, a lot of that has not changed, and I think videos work very well. We're able to do this event live on video, for example, and I'm sure people are still quite engaged. So I think it really hasn't changed from doing the transaction part. I think where things have changed, though, as you pointed out in your funding report that you were showing, that there has been a slight fall in funding globally in any kind of venture-backed ecosystem. But I think even in fintech, it has fallen a little bit compared to the same quarters last year. But personally, I was expecting it to fall a little bit more. So it was a pleasant surprise to see that funding maybe has not fallen as much as I was initially thinking of it falling. Now, everything is kind of in the details, right? So if you dig in more into the reports as the audience, you'll notice that maybe, for example, a lot of the transactions that are contributing to that number are actually larger deals. So startups that have already gotten past their Series A, maybe even Series B. So some of these investment amount numbers are actually coming from very large kind of mega rounds, right? Like Hippo Insurance, for example, is a US-based insurtech startup that just announced a $150 million round. So we're seeing more of these like bigger rounds happening. And I think there's been a slight bit of slowdown in early stage pre-seed and seed funding, because at that stage, as a company, you don't have necessarily a lot of proof points, and it's a lot riskier as an investment for investors. So I personally think that investors are probably starting to focus a bit more on companies with stronger fundamentals, some traction, some clients that are locked down already. And that's why you're seeing a bit more transaction volume on larger deals rather than the very, very early stage deals.
Right. So the relationship's already built. Everyone's comfortable with each other. There's some proof of performance. So they're willing to throw money to continue growing and developing, right?
Yeah. And that's a really good point, actually, even that the more VCs that I talk to, a lot of them have, during the first couple of months of the pandemic, focused on founders that they've known for a long time. So, founders that they've known for the last couple of years and already has that existing relationship. The trust is already built, like you said. And so it's an easier funding discussion rather than meeting somebody brand new. So yeah, that was the first couple of months. But again, we're already in Q3. And so I think things are definitely going back to normal from a venture kind of funding perspective.
So that's very interesting, though. So, of course, that's great news for anybody who's already, done their Series A and they're growing. But what about the younger, earlier startups? Would you have some potentially advice or some thoughts on, how do they overcome some of these challenges to build that and establish that trust in order to get their funding, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like once you get through the gate with a VC, I think the trust, so long as you're being able to talk about your company in an educated way, you understand the space that you're tackling, you've thought about all the questions that an investor might have from an investor perspective, you're articulate about the answers and actually very thoughtful about them. I think that trust can be built, quite quickly, right? Like even in the first conversation, sometimes I'll walk away from a call saying, wow, that person knows a lot about that industry. Either that's from experience or from research or from understanding customer pain points. And when it's a good opportunity and the founders inspire that confidence, there's clear chemistry between the investor and the founders, I think the money will come. And so my best advice for early stage founders is just to try to focus on the business as much as possible and try to understand from an investor's perspective that the more proof points you have, given that it's an early stage business, the more proof points that you can show, the better it will be for you as a fundraising process. There's obviously always that chicken and egg problem of, I don't have funding, how am I going to build this? Or, and then nobody's funding me because I don't have the product. So there's that chicken and egg problem, but as much as possible, try to de-risk it for the investor so that they get it right away,
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you, Laviva. And let's wrap up this deep dive with a question from our audience, Maddie Rodwell. So she was wondering, what's the best way for startups to get in touch with Luge?
That's a great question. So I always recommend trying to find an intro. So obviously right now we can't go to events. We can't meet at events because that's also a great way in general to meet. You can, if we've met at an event or had some sort of connection, for example, here on this platform, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we'll take it from there. Best way to reach out to any VCs is actually referrals, I would say. We looked at, for example, the investments that we've done over the last couple of years, and a lot of our deals were actually through referrals from our personal contacts. I would say that the last option you should choose is reaching out cold without an introduction. However, I understand that that's always still maybe the only option. So on our website, we also have a contact us page where we have this entire investment form. It's me and my colleague who always go through those applications that come in through. And if it makes sense as an investment opportunity, we'll reach out and connect with the founders.
So that's a great plug for our show, right? So if you have a startup and you're interested in getting a connection, you come on our show, make a big splash, make some good relationships with Ilias, Alejandro, Valentin, and myself, and then we can maybe send an introduction over to Luge, right?
Well, overall, it's true. You could always do a cold intro, like real quick, but then you start looking at where those people who involve in the organization that you're interested in are located, what kind of events we go in. For example, Dennis, just this show, we presented a lot of the type of events that are going on in the fintech ecosystem. Some of the people at Luge, for example, they go to those events. It's a small crowd after a while. That's a fantastic way. Do a cold, but start looking for any hot leads. There's nothing better like in person. So, hey, we're back at the lobby section. Thank you for that. Ilias, you had a quick question you want to ask before you had to run to your meeting.
Yeah, actually, I'm late for my meeting. You are supposed to be like the super rational people and actually finish at 12:30.
Go. Question.
Ilias, we're hypocritical, right? So we only know how to criticize you about your time management skills.
Laviva, trust me, they've been criticizing me for like 5
Ilias, you just lost 30 seconds. Or you're more late. Go. Question.
Okay, it's okay. No, actually, I wanted to highlight one micro aspect that Laviva highlighted, but to double down on it, is that whether COVID or no COVID, everything is about relationships and everything is about trust. So I saw Matty Rodwell's question, and many people tend to ask this question. Oh, I want to pitch, I want to present, I want to sell. My big advice is don't sell. And the simple advice that we repeat over and over for decades now is ask for money, you'll get advice, but ask for advice, you'll get money. So ask for advice, be there, comment on this kind of simple stuff. Like right now, we already talked about Mati twice in a show that I didn't know Mati, and I'm sorry if I'm supposed to. But that person will be checked on by one of our team members, maybe engage with them. And like, this is simple things that you can do online that you may not be able to do physically. On the other hand, is like build trust with other players of the ecosystem. And we're going to get to Fintech Cadence later. But the drink or the Fintech drinks that they host is a great way to engage with community members, to get your name out there, and don't pitch. Honestly, like I don't think, and I had another question that I asked earlier about, but I'm not going to ask it actually. I put it in comments, so maybe Laviva can talk about it if she wants. But how many times do you actually invest after a first pitch? I think it's close to zero. I think the investment starts at the intro level, as Laviva highlighted, where someone Laviva's trust will tell her, hey, there is this guy or this girl or this person that has an interesting product or that has an interesting team, because team is above product in many, many cases. You should engage with them. You should talk to them. You should maybe
I'll stop you here, Laviva. Does that make sense? And is there cases where that actually doesn't apply for some strange reasons?
I think introductions will always be helpful. Obviously, if I didn't trust the person who was introducing in the first place, that's a whole different thing. But even then, like I always tell, and this is just my personal thing, is I always tell my network that if you find any company that you think is fintech, fits our kind of area of interest, then just feel free to send it to me. You don't need to vet it, because that's my job, is to vet it. Because sometimes I find that people also feel awkward sending a referral, because they're like, oh, maybe they're going to judge me on, maybe I didn't see what something that was wrong with this, right? And I'm like, you know what, that's my role to do. Like, you don't have to vet it for me. I'm going to vet it. So if you have anybody that could be interesting, feel free to just send them my way.
Nice. So let me add a bit more people on here. Nicholas, do you hear us?
Je vous laisse, les amis. Have a beautiful day. I have to jump out. But my
Bye, Elias.
Enjoy. Have a beautiful weekend. Have a wonderful Friday.
I thought you were going to say Father's Day.
All good. And for whoever is doing Eid, happy Eid Mubarak, and enjoy. Bye-bye.
Take care. It was nice having you. So, Nick, happy to have you, because we've been actually talking, the last section of the lobby with Laviva was basically about, that kind of connection you can build. And we hinted at the idea that there's this nice event called Fintech Drinks. Can you tell us more, and how does it apply to the discussion we had barely a few minutes ago?
You're speaking about how intros are important, so maybe let's conclude with that. And so Fintech Drinks is coming up. It's a monthly event that we host at Fintech Cadence. So we're essentially Canada's Fintech hub. We try to bring together the community around Fintech, and one of our most popular events, which happens on a regular basis, is called Fintech Drinks. So you're all more than welcome to come. The next one's on August 19th. We'll be speaking about the digital transformation of financial institutions. So I hope, are you all coming? Laviva, will you be there at the next one?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So like for Maddie, for example.
Yeah, we have a whole captive audience now that's like, damn, she's coming.
I don't love it. It's always Laviva. Like she'll be there. Maybe you'll meet her, maybe you won't. There's going to be tons of people. We have over 100 people at each event. And but it's great, because, in this time where now we can't meet in person and can't have a physical beer, we use the Hopin platform that maybe some of you have used for other events. And I feel all organizations, you guys did it with Creative Collisions, trying to innovate and use, try to figure out new ways of meeting. So it's not just a Zoom webinar that you listen to our panelists. We have 30 minutes of networking before the event. So we invite everybody to show up at 5 p.m. so you can meet the other participants, the panelists, and our sponsors. Then we have the panel. You get to ask a Q&A to all the panelists. And then we have more networking at the end where, you get to meet more people. So it's really like the gathering for people interested in fintech to come together once a month.
That's very cool.
The whole kind of a chat roulette in Hopin is fantastic. So you'll have like a nice bruschette of people and expertise. Alejandro, will you be there as well?
Yeah, I'm planning to do. I'm really curious about it. I've been there in person, in the in-person version. It was an amazing time. I'm curious about how is it going in online. I have no doubt that it's going to be a success. But yes, I will be there. Could you repeat once again? When is it?
It's August 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. So you could either go on our website, fintechcadence.com, and under events, you'll see the next one. And you could also see the themes for the upcoming FinTech drinks all the way through November. So those are already locked in. And yeah, it's a pretty cool programming. And yeah, we hope to see many of you there. And if you can't make it for whatever reason, we do share the recording afterwards on YouTube in any case, if you just wanted to listen to the panel, that's possible. But then you can't meet lovely people like Laviva or Alejandro, for example.
It's actually a usual trap for those things where if you cannot attend, the backup solution is the video recording, but there's so much, it works so well when it actually forces you to put that in your schedule, get some time available for that, and actually have discussions with people that saw the same event than you. Already creates that very nice, initial, common topic of discussion. Laviva, when you go to events like that, or when you network, what is the kind of lens what type of a connection you're trying to make?
I think it really depends on the topic. So, for example, FinTech Cadence, every drinks event they have, it's on a different topic. So, last one I believe was on cybersecurity. So, I was kind of expecting more maybe people with cybersecurity backgrounds to be there. But in general, it's also a nice way to just reconnect with people. Like I know a lot of people in the FinTech community, but you're not always able to keep up with them or keep in touch with them. So these events are a great way to reconnect with them and just see what the updates are and whatnot.
True, and there's also a great benefit of when you're new to that space, and let's face it, a lot of our audience are getting started in that startup ecosystem. Going to those events, start seeing the same people also means the opposite, that the other people start seeing you more and more. So when you discuss with them, when they hear you interact with other organizations, startups, with expertise, skills, you don't come from nowhere. I've seen you in a bunch of events. You're already kind of this familiar face, and that really helps starting the discussion. And speaking of familiar faces, this is the first episode we do about FinTech. There will be more episodes about FinTech. It's a very popular topic, and there's so much to talk about. And I hope we're going to see our audience next time. We've seen some of those questions. Even if the show ends and you have some questions, write them down. Somebody will come and answer them. But I hope we're going to see you, audience, again next week. So we start at 12 sharp on, sharp-ish. Okay, 12 sharp-ish. That's the joy of digital. You have a bit of flexibility there, but we always have 5 minutes of lobby before and a bit after the show. So if you join just a bit before 12, you have this more informal chat. And if you want to ask questions to related to the show, put them in the chat section. Or if you want to also work on a crazy initiative that we try to do research, we have our little, drones looking for the next events, the next piece of news, but maybe we missed one. Super simple. Just write it down in the comments and we're going to shout about it. Perfect. So, hey, everybody, I wish you, I hope you all going to have an amazing weekend. That's my plan, at least. And Dennis, we'll see you next week. Laviva, again, thank you so much for your presence.
My pleasure.
We'll see you in the startup drinks. And Alejandro, you're always everywhere we go. So we're going to see you there.
As Nicola, we used to run into each other all the time.
Yeah,
I haven't seen you on the metro in a while, Alejandro.
I know, but now it happens with Neil. But online, whatever it was happening with you and Sagar in person, now is with Neil online.
Well, you're just connected to the FinTech Cadence family,
Yes.
Yeah, and if you're on
heart.
Slack, then you just have their names all the time, and at some point you will dream about sending messages on Slack, and that's you went too far. Before we go too far, it's time to take a better break.
Yeah.
Sorry, Alejandro, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Laviva, Nicolas, there's a very interesting question from Sofiane Meg. They're in the chat. Probably, like, if we don't have more time right now, perhaps you wanted answer to that later.
So
North America, go ahead.
Yeah, though, Sofiane, you got yourself lucky. You kind of squeezed in one last question. I see what you did there, Sofiane. But it works. It basically relates to North America and the fintech technology there. And she asks, is there a huge opportunity in leveraging the maturity of their market to address less sophisticated market in the rest of the world. She was referring here to European fintech getting into African tenders. Oh, I've seen that a lot. What's your take on that when you kind of go cross market?
Yeah, I mean, as venture investors, for example, I can tell you that when we invest in even, let's say, Canadian fintech startups, our goal is always to make sure that those startups can expand beyond the Canadian market. Because if you think about it, the Canadian market itself is not huge. It's a decent size, but it's not huge for a lot of businesses where you can build necessarily $1 billion business or a decacorn and whatnot. And so we always try to find those founders who have the mindset of starting, let's say, in the Canadian market, owning it, but then eventually expanding out of that. And obviously, the first market that a lot of Canadian founders think of is the US, because it's right down there, and it's a massive way to enter a bigger market and whatnot. But I can also see a lot of opportunities in emerging markets as well. Obviously, you have to adjust, part of the technology itself. You have to make sure that the technology is built in a multilingual, multi-currency kind of foundation from the beginning to ensure that you're able to tap into these markets. Which, in fact, sometimes I think that if you start in the Quebec market, you have that multilingual aspect already. So it's kind of a benefit for you, right? But to think of those things, and I think emerging markets present a huge, huge opportunity for sure for these startups.
True. It makes me think of Dennis. You've been showing this 110 pages report, and this whole section about what's going on outside North America. And if you're a founder right now, it's kind of your job really to follow those various startups and acquisitions and partnerships to see, wait, who are those guys? Why are they being acquired? Oh, they're working on that technology. So you have to put that in your pitch. And show the potential for growth there. But it's true that we don't realize it, but in Montreal, we tend to culturally connect easily with the European market. There's already some Francophone areas and Anglophone areas in Africa. And of course, we tend to go in US, and a lot of it, there's more and more connections with the South as well. So we're kind of in a lucky space culturally for expanding. So look, speaking of expanding, I'm going to do the opposite, and I'm going to close the show. Thanks, Soufiane, for that last question. But we have to get our Friday back and enjoy the rest of it and have a crazy nice weekend.
Laviva, Nicholas, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
So for everybody else, let's see you next week. And I'm going to close the live, and you're going to close your live.